Hey guys, what is up? It is Skull Flag 44 here. Welcome to Hawks Rambling Seahawks versus 49ers 2013 Week 2 preview. I'm going to be talking about the game coming up here. Here is Marshawn Lynch from the game where the Seahawks just destroyed the 49ers, and hopefully we have a repeat performance this weekend. But yeah, so I'm going to just have a couple different notes I'm going to touch on. We'll see where the conversation goes. As I mentioned before, I don't have as much time to do this stuff, so they're not going to be as long, which is probably a good thing in the end. But yeah, I don't have enough time to do research and watch all the press conferences and all that like I would ideally do, but still should be pretty solid, and we'll see where I lead once I start getting going and talking. First thing I want to talk about is Allen Bradford getting dropped for Kellen Davis. First mandatory note here, I don't know much about Kellen Davis at all. I know he's tight end. I know he played on the Bears. I think the Browns too. Just saw that quickly. Probably maybe do some more research on him later, but I mean, he's pretty much just an average backup tight end. He's nothing special. It's not like he's, a Kellen Winslow or, someone with maybe lots of untapped potential. I don't think, he could have some potential. He could be a guy on this team for a while, but Anthony McCoy, once he comes back next year, I think is, in position to take over again. Obviously, you got Luke Wilson, who didn't even catch a pass last week, as the next guy up. But I think after seeing Mike Person struggle with a couple penalties and realizing maybe that's not the best option, and maybe they think, okay, we want to try to do more, two tight end sets or, use three tight ends against the 49ers moving forward with the run game struggling in the Carolina games. That could be part of the reason. But dropping Allen Bradford to me is the wrong decision. I think Allen Bradford's extremely talented and can be extremely successful. I would not be surprised at all if he goes to the Jaguars. I think that'd be a perfect fit for him, where Gus Bradley could really utilize him, and I think he could honestly start on a team. If he was starting for the Seahawks, I wouldn't have any problem with that. That's how highly I think of Allen Bradford, because I like guys with lots of potential, and he has that with the ability to make big hits, big plays, and I know I like him more than Malcolm Smith. I definitely like him more than Mike Morgan. I like him more than Heath Farwell, but they seem committed to Heath Farwell with him being the special teams captain and all that. Which, okay, you can have a guy there that just is a special teams guy and is a leader of the team, sort of deal. That's fine. But over Mike Morgan, I really don't know, and I hope they don't, regret this situation later. He seemed pretty cool with it. He was replying to some people on Twitter, where he's like, "Thanks, all good or whatever, no big deal," sort of deal. Which I guess is the right attitude, because I'm sure he knows he'll get picked up. They probably told him that, like, hey, you're gonna play somewhere, and if you don't find a job or anything, you'll have room on our practice squad. So that was kind of disappointing, because I really wanted to see what he could do. He was a running back in college and was just kind of relearning the linebacker position, which he played in in high school, because he could have gone both ways. And Pete Carroll made him running back and then switched him over to linebacker once he got to the NFL and kind of struggled for a bit. So that's definitely something to look at, and down the road we'll see what the big implications are and what really has happened from it. But Kellen Davis, I can look him up right now, seems more just like a stopgap sort of guy for a while. Is he better than Sean McGrath? I don't know. You've seen the Seahawks pick up a guy like Evan Moore or Kellen Winslow, and that really hasn't turned out. But here we go. Kellen Davis, 27 years old. He was with the Bears for 4 years. 5th round draft pick. Okay, that's decent. Was just released with 3-man cuts, I guess, but not practice squad eligible. All right, so runs a 4.5 40. Maybe he has some skills. We'll see what he does. I think he's just a replacement player. That's kind of what I expect him to be. Couldn't really find a great spot on the team, and it struggled with the drops apparently, which was when he got dropped. So hopefully his blocking is good. I guess Zach Miller and who's the other guy? Luke Wilson will take over. Will be able to catch the ball a lot, and they tried out lots of tight ends. They had they had Daryl Fells, and then they tried out his brother Daniel Fells, and this guy was the best of the bunch, I guess. So we'll see how that goes. Let's see. Next, I can also talk about how Seahawks shuffled around their practice squad again, which I think they're doing some weird strategy where they're trying to keep like a bigger practice squad than they actually have, with the way that they're signing guys and dropping them and doing all this sorts of stuff, because it seems kind of weird. Like they had two linemen on there. They kept one guy, dropped the other guy, and then they switched them this week, which I think it's Seymour and Smith, and they're basically the same person to me. I mean, one's nicknamed Fat Rabbit, one has long hair. But as far as I know, I haven't really learned their techniques or anything like that. I haven't gone too in depth with them. They're pretty much equal. So I think they're just trying to balance that out and, hopefully try to keep as many people kind of on and familiar with the Seahawks as possible. So they added back Ty Powell, which I thought was big because he was one of my favorite guys on the practice squad originally. But then they dropped him, and then now they've just added him back on. And I think and they dropped Michael Brooks, who was also another guy that I liked on the practice squad. But I guess they think that none of those guys will get picked up, and they're just going to kind of keep them at bay, keep them off for a bit, but kind of keep them in the program, and then if they need to, they can call them up, which I guess is their strategy to have the best practice squad in the NFL. It seems pretty good to me. I don't know. It's kind of hedging your bets, though, hoping that no one else they won't get picked up. But I mean, similar with the Avril and Bradford thing, the Seahawks have shown that when making these decisions that seem kind of crazy, like dropping Kellen Winslow and stuff like that, they've turned out, and they have made the right decision in the end. And also with like the Tebow, situation, other teams have in different scenarios like that. So NFL teams seem to really know what they're doing in this situation, and especially the Seahawks. I have a lot of faith that they'll make the right decision, but it's just kind of one of those because it's really hard to tell, what's going through their head, and a lot of times, news and all that sort of stuff and reporters are just trying to catch up to what the NFL teams are doing instead of the other way around. But that's enough for that talk. For stuff that won't factor into this game, just general Seahawks talk right there. Things that could factor into this game directly, and new information, which is the good stuff right here, is Chris Clemons practicing for the first time against getting some live snaps. I think he's still limited in practice, not like full go yet or anything, but he could potentially play in this game, which would be huge. Now, I think this is just a kind of a leak by the Seahawks because it was reported by Danny O'Neil that, to throw that out there, he could be playing, so the 49ers don't really know what to expect. But then, if he's even a possibility for this week, you think that there's a good chance, or a very real chance for the game against Jacksonville next week. Although you're not really going to need him against Jacksonville, so maybe you don't force it, and maybe you put him, I think it's the Colts next. Check. Texans and then Colts. So, Texans game is going to be tough for sure. So maybe you bring him back then, which is pretty good. And the week after that, you get Bruce Irvin back, so you get a nice little, step up there. But that'll be interesting because if he does, he could be a huge factor. You assume if he is going that he's going to be 100% healthy. Depending on what they do. I guess if he is going, he might not be 100% healthy, but assuming if they put him out there, he will be. So kind of that back and forth there. Although Brandon Browner has been out, who kind of got just a weird fluke injury, I guess, with his hamstring during practice last week, and he didn't play in the Carolina game. And I don't know, it wasn't a huge deal. The backup cornerbacks did a good job, but the Panthers don't have very good wide receivers, and the 49ers don't have very good wide receivers. But Anquan Boldin's the guy that everyone's kind of looking at now, especially when he had a great game last week. And Brandon Browner is obviously super physical and can, if the Seahawks, Chris Harper is kind of looked at as an Anquan Boldin light player, poor man Anquan Boldin sort of thing. Obviously, Anquan Boldin is as an exceptional player, and I don't know how the Ravens, how the 49ers got him for a 6th-round pick. That's crazy. He's been so good for so long, and it's not like he wins off of speed or anything like that, or anything that will really deteriorate with age quickly. He wins off of, strength and being physical and, knowing where to go, which is, easier to extend when in your later years. Because, strength is a little harder, but, that's still manageable. So if Brandon Browner plays, I think that could be a huge helper there. But overall, I don't think the Seahawks will have a huge deal with it. I mean, the only threat on the 49ers wide receiver core is Anquan Bolden, really. We've got a couple other guys that can do things, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do factor in, but they're not guys that you have to be scared of. I mean, looking at the Seahawks, they have lots of different guys that can do lots of different things. And once we get, Percy Harvin back, we have that really scary guy that you don't know where he's going to fit in, which is going to be awesome. Pumped for that. And I don't know if I mentioned it, but I'm sure everyone knows that Percy Harvin said he's eyeing week 7 when he's, allowed to come back, which I don't think they do that. Let me just check the schedule real quick to see what week 7 is. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, so it's the Cardinals, and then week 8 is the Rams, and then week 9 is the Buccaneers. So maybe somewhere in that range would be pretty nice. Those games are obviously all tough, I think, but none that are like a big, wow, this, I think the Seahawks are going to be pretty much favored to win every single game they play in, except for, maybe the 49er game if they, live up to their expectations. So we'll see how that all goes. But anyway, Brandon Browner still out, so we'll see how it goes. I think he was questionable last week, and I think it's going to be one of those things where they're going to see, okay, do we want to risk putting him out there? Even though if he's not 100%, because the Seahawks have great cornerback depth, they can, try to figure that out and maybe take a little risk in not playing him rather than taking a risk and playing him that he could get more injured. But I'm sure they'll make the right decision there. But I've said before, or I've not said before, but I've tweeted out today that I think the Brandon Browner playing would probably be a bigger deal than Chris Clemons playing, because I'd have a hard time seeing Chris Clemons, be 100% and be ready to go. Although, if he is at full strength, he's better than a Brandon Browner at full strength. And the other thing is I'm expecting, some pass rushers like Benson Mayowa. O'Brien Schofield, I think, will do a good job anyway because he had that sack against Cam Newton. Benson Mayowa got some pressures but just needed to tackle better, which maybe was one of his problems in college, is why he didn't get so many sacks, although it doesn't make much sense because he was playing the WAC, which is super easy. So that's still a conundrum I'm trying to figure out, and maybe one day it'll show up somewhere. But I think, Benson Mayowa will, with the crowd and atmosphere, will be able to step up and, maybe you get Cliff Avril in there, which would be big. I think if you get Cliff Avril or Chris Clemons, that'd be huge. One or the other. If you don't get either, you might have some problems because, Kaepernick's a guy that I think if you get pressure on, especially, with the atmosphere, the more pass rushers you have out there, the more pressure you get, the better opportunity of your team. There was that Monday night game with the Packers that was huge because of all the pass rush and stuff we got. So we'll see how that goes. But, getting at least one of those three, I think, would be big. So then obviously this is a huge rivalry game. The teams don't play until week 12 or something like that. 17, 16, 15, 14. I don't know. It's later in the season. It's tough with the buys and stuff too. To see, and my board just kind of has all the games up there. It's far away. But obviously till later in the season, you assume Percy Harvin will be back unless he's had, barring any crazy setbacks or anything. And I think it'll be, a different perspective. The NFC West will probably be, it'll be a big deciding game. You imagine, one team will maybe have the lead, and a lot can change between now and then. But for a while, this will be kind of the big talking point. The Seahawks have the momentum in the rivalry, just destroying the 49ers. If they can replicate that, that'd be amazing. That if they could do it twice in a row, show that they belong and that they, are controlling the NFC West now and are the ones to beat. And ultimately, in order to be the ones to beat, you got to win the divisions. But this would put them on pretty good position to do so, because if they win their game at home and lose their game on the road, you can take that. And if you win your game at home first, then you go on the road and you're like, all right, if we get it, great. That's, you kind of, I don't know, I guess kind of the way to look at it is between these two teams, since they're so evenly matched, if you win on the road, it's like, or I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. Like, you win at home, it's like, okay, that was a good job. That's what you're supposed to do. But if you lose at home, it's like, okay, wow, now if you try to, now you have to go on the road to even it up. So hopefully the Seahawks will be in the position if they win this game where they'll be like, all right, winning this game would be huge, set a huge message, but if we don't win it, it's not like it's the end of the world. Well, 49ers were to drop 2 games, the Seahawks drop both games, that would be, they're probably not winning the division after that. Okay, the more onto the rivalry stuff. There's Pete Carroll versus Jim Harbaugh, which will be exciting to look at to see if there's any kind of scuffles, or how the handshake is going to be and all that sort of stuff, because the two guys just don't like each other, have different kind of mindsets, even though they're similar, in the way they kind of, I guess, the way their teams look. And then Russell Wilson versus Colin Kaepernick. They've been in these commercials together. But both guys have said they're not really friends or don't really talk. That's the only one time they talk. And, I think they kind of respect each other. But if they were to, there would be some drama there and they were to not like each other, I think that would be pretty fun too. And then the atmosphere of the game, the Seahawks are going, or the 12th man is going for the Guinness Book of World Records, loudest stadium or whatever on like the first possession. So something to look at is, I think the big thing to do is, the coin toss. You want to win the coin toss or, have the 49ers just lose it. So you can defer to the second half, because that's what I'm sure the 49ers are going to do, and I'm sure that's what the Seahawks are going to want to do, because the Seahawks obviously want to start on defense because they want to get the stop. That's when the crowd can really, react, and that's, I think the big choice now that's really shifted from a while ago, where you want the ball in the second half. But I'm sure if the 49ers get it, they'd much rather go on defense, maybe get a stop, and then kind of quiet the crowd down a bit, although it's going to be tough. It's going to be crazy anyway, especially if the Seahawks can, drive the ball at least a little bit and maybe get some points. I don't know. The whole game's going to be super enjoyable. Last week, I forgot to record the game. I've just been recording it and uploading it, and just for my own personal use, I think it's going to be a crazy historic season. So I'm just kind of taking a guess that these games will be fun to look back on eventually. Even though this is the same thing I've said about my YouTube channel, and I've never looked back on them yet. But I forgot to record it last week, and was like halfway through the game, and I realized I forgot, and I'm like, okay, just screw it. But this game I'm definitely going to want to record, because this game is going to be one of those games that, is going to be it's going to be important whether no matter what happens, and it's going to be big. My prediction for the game, let's see. I think the Seahawks are going to win it. I just have a hard time seeing them losing in that environment and how crazy it is. But I think it could go so many ways, and trying to predict it, I don't know. I feel like I'm like dodging my own question here, like of predictions here. But it's like, man, I just really don't know which way it's going to go. Although I just cannot imagine the Seahawks losing this game in that environment. And if they do, I don't think the season's lost or anything. I don't think they're in like huge trouble. But I think they could still go to the Super Bowl even if they lose it, depending on how much they lose it by and everything. But it'll kind of, put a shot in my confidence in them, just in seeing what they can do. The 49ers looked good last week. They're a great team. I think Kaepernick's better than Wilson right now, and the 49ers are better than the Seahawks, but I think at home, the Seahawks are just too good. You might be like, oh, that's crazy, but I just think, man, I think Kaepernick's going to get figured out, and I think he's going to have a shorter lifespan in the NFL. Same with the 49ers, but I think the 49ers are peaking right now, and the Seahawks are still rising. I think the Seahawks, if you look at it, like a graph of some sort, the Seahawks are still going up and are going to get to a point before they start going down a bit again. And it's going to be over a longer extended period of time. Well, the 49ers are going up, and maybe they're, still at that peak or close to it, maybe declining a bit, or maybe right around there, and then they're going to start going down quicker, because of their, they had a quicker ascent, and they're going to have a quicker decline, I think. But I don't know. That's just some thoughts. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Definitely tune into the game Sunday night. Sunday Night Football, 5:30. I don't know, just is going to be worth it. I'm just so excited to hear what it's going to be like, to see what it's going to be like. Kaepernick said in an interview today that he doesn't think the crowd's going to be a huge factor and all that, and that'll just rouse people up anymore. And I think this is going to be the most anticipated regular season game, and is going to be the loudest regular season game for the Seahawks in franchise history, which sounds crazy, but it's just like, man, people have been thinking about this